What's up, guys? Welcome back to the S&S podcast. This is host. I don't know what week it is, what number, but
See what's our record now? 7-1.
So is it week 9 technically, or was it just week 8? I don't remember.
Week 9, I guess.
Ohio State just played Penn State. Notre Dame just played NC State. So it's Sunday after that, Saturday essentially, and obviously the OSU Penn State game was very exciting, very gut-wrenching for a good 56 minutes for Ohio State fans, and then they decided to turn it on afterwards. I probably should introduce for you 8 guys that watch this. This is the roommate's brother, Alex, and then you guys know Addison. We're missing Steele as he is on paternity leave, and then Corey from Denver you're obviously never going to see. So, but yes, so we got a guest host tonight, and I think what we're going to do is recap basically OSU Penn State. Alex was at the game. Addison pretty much only watched that game. I had the Notre Dame game on during the OSU game, and that's pretty much I saw a little bit, so I'll comment on Notre Dame a little bit, I guess. But essentially, we'll probably just kind of recap OSU Penn State, talk about this week's upcoming playoff ranking show or whatever, talk about that a little bit, talk about the upcoming weekend's games, and maybe recap our bets for the weekend. I think this was the first weekend of the podcast didn't do as well as a group. I think
this was we had one bad week I think before.
Yeah.
This might have been our worst week of the season.
I think Corey referred to it as Bloodbath Saturday, so maybe it was worse than I thought. But I thought for a minute I was going to go like
I do think it was our worst,
12, and I ended up 6-9-1, I think, from what I looked. I don't remember. I kind of don't care because Ohio State won. So.
Yeah, we haven't tallied up our wins and losses yet, but there was a lot of red,
which is not good. So
yeah, I was actually down quite a bit and made a comeback later in the day. Still finished a little bit down, but kind of salvaged it.
So I guess we'll kind of just get right into the obvious game of the year. I think so far potentially. Alex, you were at the game. What was the atmosphere like for that first 55 minutes? You said it was kind of quiet. Ohio State fans were kind of down and thought.
Yeah, especially with that opening kickoff. How was the crowd after that?
I mean, the crowd was pretty much like everyone was cheering like you normally do to start a game, and instantly that everyone could see that hole just open wide up. And everyone was just in shock, just dead quiet.
Were you surprised, as I was, that they even would kick to Barkley in the first place? It's kind of questionable. Just I understand that, hey, we're Ohio State. We should be able to cover a kick.
Yeah.
But I mean, why give this guy, the one guy that could probably break the game open and beat you, a chance? And obviously, it really hasn't mattered who's been returning kicks all year. I think we can all agree that Ohio State's been pretty atrocious on special teams as far as kickoff coverage goes, and that's been the case for I think almost 2 years now. It's kind of embarrassing because I'm pretty sure Urban is the one that oversees the special teams still. I think Kerry Combs is.
My dad keeps saying he's a fire himself for the special teams.
Yeah, and honestly, your dad makes a great point because we have the worst special teams ever. So, so the atmosphere, but then obviously, once we get to the last 4 minutes.
Yeah. And then you had the fumble, and then we got down 14-0 4 minutes into the game.
Right.
Ever since then, it was pretty quiet for pretty much the whole time until the fourth quarter, even when we were still trailing, I think 15 or at that point going in. It started picking up, and they would see momentum, and then when Penn State scored the field goal, killed it a little bit. But everyone was still really into it the whole rest of the fourth quarter, and then the final 4 minutes.
Just
your typical just everyone screaming and hollering.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of it's amazing to see it whenever JT Barrett's been probably pretty underappreciated for his whole career, I would say. And the one main game against a good team that people always point to was the Michigan State game in 2014 when he diced them up. We won a huge game. That was the game that basically it announced ourselves as our team. We were really confident. We went on a roll. We won the national title. That game we kind of blew the doors off though, and we were ahead. And we were playing from ahead.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of pressure. This is the first time I think that JT and this offense in a few years, was behind and felt like, hey, you know what? We can make these plays, and we can consistently drive the ball. And I don't know if I've seen. I had trouble remembering like other performances from quarterbacks that were maybe that good in that moment. Like I was thinking of Vince Young in the national title game.
Yeah.
I was thinking. I mean, there's obviously if I thought about it hard enough, there's a lot of guys, and we're all Ohio State fans, so we're probably a little biased towards that. But I think anybody that's a fan of football, period, if they're watching that game, they're thinking, I mean, this kid just did what maybe nobody else could do that night potentially. So it was something else.
Yeah,
but,
it was. It looked like 2014 JT again.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
And it kind of, we've said like for the last couple of years that JT didn't look like himself. Like we really believed that he could be better than that.
Yeah.
A lot of people doubted that was the case.
Right.
But yeah, he played damn near a perfect game. It was definitely a Heisman type performance. So
Right.
we'll see if he can continue to do that. He could definitely end up in New York, have a shot at it.
Yeah, and I think we should definitely give credit as because we've been saying for a long time that quarterback's very dependent on the players around him. Football's such the ultimate like team sport.
Yeah.
And when we would bash the offensive line, the wide receivers for not doing their part, we need to give them credit on this podcast. The O-line gave him a lot of time in a lot of clutch situations.
Yeah.
Now,
It was
early
everything
on,
was shaky.
yeah, they
in the
had some
beginning.
false starts. He had some pressure on his face. Credit to him. It's the first time that I've seen him deliver the ball, staring down the gun barrel and really hitting guys in his face. But for the most part, as the game progressed, the O-line did very well. Of course, he's playing with that. And
If the computer falls, it's because the cat is playing with cords below it.
Yeah. So Charlie, what are you doing, buddy? So. But yeah, I thought the O-line did very well, and I think the receivers are really growing up. Like that unit in the last 6 weeks has shocked me. I never thought I'd be saying that they were a strength of the night. They were really consistent with their route running. They made timely catches. We had a couple drops, and I think that probably happens to most teams every game at some point, but it's just more glaring when it's in a big moment like that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to stay too long on OSU. What was your biggest takeaway from the game overall? Besides JT, give me something that you were happy about. Something that we need to work on.
What's crazy, like a game like we played yesterday early on, just it seemed like it just wasn't our day. Like everything was going wrong.
Yeah.
Special teams, horrible.
Right.
Every time we were kicking off, we were really nervous.
Yeah.
We were just doing the stupid squib thing, and we even let one of their linebackers almost return it. Touchdown
it was
too.
Like 60 or 70 yards
Yeah,
or something.
that one was. I thought that one was even worse than the touchdown, just because we had our entire team in between the hash and the sideline. There was no one on the other side of the field. So I don't know what the deal was there. There's like literally no one else on the other side of the field.
Yeah.
And just can't have that happen on your special teams. But it's really hard to beat a good team when you make as many mistakes as we did, and we still somehow pulled that out. I'm still kind of in shock that
surreal.
we did. Yeah. And Penn State, it's not like we got back into the game because Penn State made mistakes. Like they played a pretty
they took
pretty
advantage of
error-free
the
game.
opportunities. Yeah.
So yeah, we just played really well once we got all the shittiness out of our system in the first quarter. From then on, we looked like an elite team.
Yeah.
And the much better team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway was I thought the secondary, even though Penn State won a couple jump balls, they got some bigger guys, and we're going to struggle with bigger receivers, I think, a lot of the time. But
yeah, I was worried about Gesicki going in just because he's
I will say, though, that I felt like we were in position, and we didn't have the blown coverage that we were having early in the game. That's one thing that I was really happy about.
I mean, the Denzel Ward, touchdown that it was originally called a pick, and then they changed it to a touchdown.
Right.
Like, I mean, he was right there. He just didn't make the play, I guess.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
His controversial play in the game. So.
Yeah. Alex, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and then there was that one interception in the end zone that I thought was bullshit that they called that back with the PI.
Yeah,
the crowd was going nuts.
Yeah,
after
that was the worst
too.
call of the game by far, I think.
Yeah, I mean the crowd, almost all those pass interference calls, and then even a couple of the no calls that were missed in that same end zone there.
Yeah.
Crowd was really getting on officials and booing, and then the touchdown overturn.
Alex, besides JT and besides the horrible special teams, like what's something that you took away from the game? Like something maybe going forward you'd like to see us do better, or something that you were impressed with that people really aren't talking about as much?
I mean, I really thought the defense. I mean, it's not gonna show with the amount of points that are on the board, but I thought the defense played really well. I mean,
I thought it played
with
great.
the situations they were put in, they really didn't let them move the ball that
Right.
much. They maybe had one drive where they went the whole length of the field.
Right.
The other ones were the kick return, set them up with like 20 yards, and the fumble was a 20-yard
Yeah.
like field. So like short field in the red zone, they struggled a little bit and gave up touchdowns. Instead of making big field goals, but
Right.
They got put in bad spots.
Yeah.
length of the field, they held up pretty strong.
They
They
did,
did a lot of 3-and-outs and punts.
Well, like we were talking about earlier today, Barkley had that one carry for like 26, whatever, and then after that he had what, like 8 for 20.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
8 rushes
20.
on
And-
22
and,
carries.
like -3. I think I saw in the second half or fourth quarter or something like that. So I mean,
Yeah. And our
um,
D line played lights out. I mean, they showed why we had hyped them up so much
Yeah.
in the preseason and everything.
I guess before we wrap up this game, or to wrap up this game, is Penn State? I mean, are they still a threat, you think, nationally if they were to get in?
I wouldn't put them up there. I know they're going to try and claim that they're in the same spot that we were last year.
What concerns
But-
you about them?
In terms of the resume, they don't have a marquee win.
I mean more like on the field.
Oh. I mean, like I said, they played a good game.
Yeah.
They took advantage of our mistakes. They didn't really make any themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think their O-line held up better than we thought it would. I mean, our D-line still got a ton of pressure. But
Yeah.
it wasn't like I was just sitting there saying, man, Penn State's O-line's going to cost them this game. I actually thought they gave McSorley a decent amount of time. Now, at the end of the game, when it was obvious we were passing, we put in 4 of the best pass rushers in the country. That happens. I think what concerns me, I guess what I was getting at is, I know that it's Ohio State. I know we're built to run the football on most any program. But Penn State looked kind of soft at times in the run game on defense. And I think the problem this year is the elite teams, Bama, Georgia, Notre Dame, Ohio State, any team that's up there right now, Wisconsin, they all can run the football.
Yeah.
And that's what Penn State struggles to stop. So I think that's a big problem for them. I do agree that I think we'll all say that Penn State's still a great team. I mean, we wouldn't, if they would have won that game, I think we would have been like, you know what, it kind of sucks because Ohio State, it seems like they outgained them, they outplayed them, but, give credit to Penn State, they would have taken advantage of the opportunities and they would have won the game and been undefeated and on their way potentially to a Big Ten title. So they're not quite out of it. They're definitely in a tough spot now, but I think OSU definitely is back in the mix, obviously, and I think, JT, we can stop asking questions about him and doubting him. So I think that passing offense is coming around. But
And it was mysterious what was going on with Dobbins yesterday. So, and I haven't heard anything today. Like, was he hurt?
he came back in.
Yeah, he came back in.
We were talking about where was Paris Campbell?
They must have just, I don't
I
know.
believe he got hurt.
Did he?
I
I was
don't-
wondering if he just got benched.
I don't
after
think
a
he would
fumble
just
or
get
something.
benched. Like he's
Yeah.
one of their more dynamic playmakers.
Yeah, it's
when
not-
he has the
It's
ball.
not like Bill
He-
Belichick.
Yeah, right.
But he just
right.
sits the
Just
guy the
cuts
rest
the
of the
guy,
game.
basically. Yeah. So I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. But I guess we'll move on from that. I mean, I know that we didn't really see many of the other games. I will mention, I guess, the Notre Dame game real quickly, just because I did see a little.
Describe
of it.
describe what happened to me.
Oh, after the game.
Yeah.
So we may have gone out, celebrating after we won this epic game. And the best way that I can describe this, as I described to Corey in Denver, is I said, well, okay, Addison says, quote, watch this, as we're walking down the street. And if you guys can imagine a skateboarder jumping up onto, like, the side of, like, a railing or, like, a concrete structure to where he goes to, like, grind with his board or whatever, it's the best way I can think of it. Addison attempted to do that without the board. And he jumps up and then just falls right back on his ass, basically. And whiplash, you land on your
Yeah.
hip, fell back, hit the back of your head, bit your tongue so hard that you were spitting really gross blood
Yeah, I was
out.
spitting blood.
So right now in your current state, you were questionable for the pod. Like, you were listed on the injury report as questionable.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
there's a lot going on right now. Lower back hurts, my elbow hurts, obviously my head, but the thing that hurts most is my tongue. Because when I hit my head on the ground, I actually bit my tongue pretty hard, and it's actually bruised,
it's disgusting.
which I didn't know could
Do
happen.
not show it to the podcast.
And like when I eat or talk or whatever, it feels like I'm getting stabbed in the tongue, so it's not a good feeling.
You said you definitely feel a little concussed.
Yeah, I do.
Do we
I
need to
was
put you
just-
in the concussion protocol? Is that like
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Are they gonna? I mean, is anything you're saying viable then? Like,
I don't know. I don't feel, mentally 100%.
okay.
And if I'm like slurring my words a little bit, it's because my tongue is in pain.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. I was just really excited after the win last night,
Yeah.
and I saw this wall that I wanted to jump on.
You know what though? We should tell them that you got back in the game.
Yeah, I got
It
right.
was,
I got right
2
up.
or 3 shitty tequila shots.
Yeah, I
and drank
remember that.
another beer or 2. You were back. You were fine.
Yeah.
And the tequila probably helped sanitize your wound. on your
Yeah,
stomach.
and it definitely dulled the pain a little bit.
Okay.
I woke up sore this morning.
Yeah, I know when you fell. I realized right in the moment I was like, you're gonna feel that tomorrow,
Yeah.
and probably for the next few days at least. So so we were celebrating a little hard, but
Yeah. My motor skills weren't the best when I tried to attempt this maneuver.
yeah. I said aloud, "This is bad." Like I just had a bad feeling about this. It was a high
Yeah.
structure. I don't doubt your athleticism, but
How tall do you think it was? Like 4 feet?
I would
or
say
something?
4. Yeah.
And I don't think I got my feet up high enough,
Not
but
quite.
I still tried to like swing them up onto it, which just made me basically flip backwards right onto my back, and
Yeah. That was not good.
then yeah,
Um,
then my head hit the ground.
All right, well, we'll transition. We'll get back to. I'll just briefly mention Notre Dame. That's the only other game I really paid any attention to. I thought North Carolina State's front seven would. I didn't think they would necessarily stop Notre Dame's running game, but I thought they would slow it down enough because Georgia did earlier in the year. That was the only good defensive front seven that Notre Dame had faced for a while. So I was really impressed with how Notre Dame's offensive line just dominated the game, and then more importantly, their defense looks fast and physical, and they look much different than they did last year. So that team is pretty legitimate. Their schedule, the remaining schedule, is Miami, Wake, Navy, and Stanford. And so I think for the first time all year that I actually think that Notre Dame should win all those games. I think going into the year,
Individually, each one, yeah.
right? Yeah. Now collectively as a whole, it's going to be
Yeah.
tough because those are
Mhm.
good teams. I mean, even like the worst team is what, Navy, and Navy's not terrible. I mean,
Yeah, and that's usually a tough game for them anyway.
yeah. So that'll be interesting going forward. And I guess that's a good transition into. I guess we can talk about like do we want to do like our top 5 or just go into like the playoff? rankings?
I was just gonna say like maybe we should talk about what we think the playoff committee is gonna do this week in terms of the rankings.
Okay. You can go first if you want. Then I guess Alex wants to.
yeah,
talk about
well,
it or whatever.
Yeah, Bama 1, Georgia 2, the undefeated teams that have looked good or looked the best, I'd say. Miami, no one really believes in Miami. None of us do. They're not going to be there. They're going to be
We'll talk
Like, where
about
do you
their
think
game
Miami
coming up
is?
this weekend. Miami.
because after Bama and Georgia, who's 3? Are we 3?
What do you think?
Ohio State is.
Yeah, I think it's
3?
possible. And then
I think we're either 3 or 4.
yeah.
So
Wisconsin, they might put Wisconsin there because they're undefeated too. I mean, they
Right.
haven't played anyone really.
I would imagine Miami being top 6.
Yeah,
I
a
mean,
little further down though.
probably like 6. I would say.
I mean, they've put
Clemson should probably be.
yeah.
I mean, 5 or 6. I would imagine.
The committee's put 1-loss teams above undefeated teams.
Something
if
else-
they think they're better,
The
right?
human element of the committee is like they're going to take into consideration that Kelly Bryant was hurt against Syracuse going into that game, and then he got hurt in the first half of that game. So I wouldn't be surprised if Syracuse was like, or Clemson was like 5. To
Yeah.
be honest.
And it'll be interesting to see where they put Penn State too, because obviously they
Yeah.
have a good loss
well,
now.
the biggest thing that we've seen the last few years with the committee is they talk about out of conference schedules,
Which they're hurting there.
non-conference wins, injuries come into play if you consider that. So I think, having said all that, I mean OSU has one of the bigger wins of the year.
Yeah, I think that's really going to help us.
I think it'll be interesting. I really I don't know. I think OSU and Wisconsin could very potentially be 3-4. And we know Alabama and Georgia's going to be 1-2.
Yeah.
And deservedly so. I mean, they've looked very dominant. They've controlled the games they've played. Georgia has one of the better wins of the year at Notre Dame. And they pretty much dominated the line.
Actually, if you think about it, Georgia can make a pretty good case to be number one ahead of Bama.
No, they really can because Bama has not one good win on the resume right now.
Their best win is like A&M, I think, right?
And A&M just got blown out by Mississippi State.
Did they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that was a good game too.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like that close, but A&M made it interesting at the end.
Yeah. I mean, I think Bama fans were going to hang their hat on Florida State, and Florida State's, I mean,
trash.
Just they gave up. I mean,
Yeah,
they're done.
35-3 to BC,
Yeah.
and I don't understand it. Like
There's nothing
they
to
have
understand.
top 3 talent. That's why they were
they
ranked
quit.
here to start the year. Yeah.
They quit. They don't want to play anymore. They're done. That's
And, like,
what it is.
And like Jimbo Fisher said during the season, he was talking about how do you get the team to, stay focused and actually, keep playing.
Right.
And he said they're playing for, their NFL draft
Right.
status. So,
Right.
I mean, that was a good point, but they don't seem to.
They don't seem to care about that.
Yeah.
They don't seem to give a fuck. I mean, to be honest. So
It's one of the biggest collapses I can remember.
yeah, I think, the playoff rankings are fun to talk about, and all the doomsday scenarios of what if these teams all win out. Every single year, almost every year, none of the teams win out like that. As a matter of fact, most of the teams actually find a way to lose a game because when's the last time we remember there being 3 12-0 teams to end the year? I mean, it just doesn't happen.
It's pretty rare. I mean, it happens.
It
occasionally,
happens
like
occasionally,
when Auburn got left
Yeah,
out that one
right.
year.
There's just usually, it seems like there's even more parity now than there even was 10 years ago. You're getting spread offenses are changing things. Teams have more of a chance in the game. I mean, it's just different. And so, I mean, anybody that wants to sit here and say, well, obviously, Alabama and Georgia are going to play each other, so one of them will have a loss. But what happens if Notre Dame, Ohio State, Clemson all win out? It's guys, the chances of all these teams all winning out are pretty low. So we got to keep that in mind, but it is fun to talk about. Malik, what are you doing, buddy? Come here. I don't want you to turn off the podcast because it doesn't run without power because that computer's dying slowly. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty good thing to take.
Yeah.
Wasn't it in 02? Wasn't Iowa undefeated when Ohio State got it?
They're undefeated in the Big Ten, though.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then, actually, if you even look at it, what was it, 2 years ago when Sparty got in, when they played Iowa? Was that it? When wasn't Iowa
was
going
undefeated, yeah.
into the Big Ten title game, and they had played nobody like Wisconsin's done this year.
Yeah,
I think this Wisconsin team is probably better than that Iowa team,
I'd say for sure. Yeah.
but we definitely don't know
It's
for sure. Yeah, he just wants attention. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we can transition into
What's next?
previewing next week. I would say.
Yeah.
Let's
I got
get,
the schedule
yeah, let's
here.
get some notable games for next week.
Next week is another. I mean, they're all pretty big weeks now at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you essentially have pretty much elimination games.
Yeah,
have
we're at the point of the year now where we have de facto elimination games. This past weekend, Ohio State, Penn State, that was pretty much an elimination game because, if Ohio State had lost, we would be done for sure.
Yeah.
Penn State is in a pretty tough spot considering they need us to lose twice now to even get to the Big Ten championship.
Right.
So I think they are probably out. It would take some.
I'd say more than likely. They're
It would
not
take
dead,
a lot of
but-
chaos for them to get back in.
Yeah.
My phone's being slow. Okay, here we go.
So what's the first game we're going to preview here?
Let's see.
I know we have VT Miami to talk about.
As far as ranked matchups go,
Yeah.
there are several actually between.
let's
two
talk about
ranked
let's talk about
teams.
Bedlam first. Let's
Yeah.
talk about Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma started the year by throttling Ohio State, and I know that we're all Ohio State fans during this live podcast right now, but I don't think there's a whole lot of people outside of Oklahoma fans that think that team would beat this Ohio State team. I think there's just two completely different teams we're talking about.
Yeah.
And not to take anything away from Oklahoma, they won that game, and they won that game in dominating fashion, a manner that I didn't think they were capable of, to be totally honest. And Baker Mayfield, with him on the field, they can do a lot of things, but some of their flaws are really starting to show in conference play, and I'm not sure that team is going to I'm pretty certain that team may lose another game, possibly maybe two.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could say that about any of the Big 12 teams because, to be honest, as much as we've dogged that conference, there's actually a lot of depth with like pretty solid teams for the most part.
Yeah.
Like none of them I think are elite, but like TCU, Iowa State, West Virginia, Texas, Kansas State. These are all teams that could probably beat one another on any given Saturday.
Yeah, and it's wide open as far as who's going to make the Big 12 championship this year.
Yeah.
Right now, you got a four-way tie at the top with TCU, Iowa State, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State.
Right. Where's the game? Where's the game?
The game is at Oklahoma State. So are you said you were talking about? Do you think Oklahoma State wins?
I don't know.
No. I mean, I think they'll win.
I think they win because simply it is in Stillwater.
Yeah.
And they play much better at home traditionally than they do on the road. And I think the way that Oklahoma's played recently, I mean, they've been up and down.
They just haven't impressed me ever since they beat us.
Yeah, I think that I've been a little surprised with Oklahoma State. They've actually been able to run the ball decently this year,
Yeah.
and they've been able to stop teams' running games. So, like, if they can kind of implement that against Oklahoma, I think that will help them out. I think this game is probably going to be pretty darn close, to be honest. And
Yeah.
I think you could probably argue it either way. I think it's probably a cop-out for me just to say that I'm just going to go with the home team, but I really do feel like them playing in Stillwater is a big deal for them. And I will say that Oklahoma State wins this game by less than a touchdown, basically.
Yeah, I think they're favored by 3
Yeah,
right now. Oklahoma State. This is off the ESPN app, and that's usually wrong. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Oklahoma State.
Cats are going crazy again.
Yeah.
Alex, do you have a prediction for Oklahoma State? We don't have to get into analysis. You can just. I mean, have you watched much of those two teams this
I
year?
really haven't seen anything of Oklahoma State, so.
You just go with us then. Actually,
Yeah.
you know what? Probably fade us. Probably pick Oklahoma, and then.
I would probably say Oklahoma, but.
Okay. So you like
Just
Oklahoma?
because I've seen them play, but.
Yeah, I mean, and if Oklahoma's firing all cylinders, I think they probably are the more talented team than Oklahoma State. I would say it's probably close, but I think they probably do have more talent in certain
Oklahoma.
spots. Yeah, like you remember 31, like the defensive end they had. I mean, that guy's.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State doesn't have a guy like that, so I mean, I don't know. It's definitely close. I think that, like I said, you could argue either way, but we'll move on to the next game.
Yeah. There's actually 7 matchups between ranked teams this
Really?
week. Yeah. It's a
Okay.
lot.
Let's just rattle them off. Let's get through them. So who do we got?
Well, one of them, we're not going to talk about all these. One of them is Arizona at USC, so that's going to go a long way in determining who wins that division.
Okay.
You've got Clemson at NC State, another basically division championship type game.
I would have felt more strongly about talking about that game had I not seen what Notre Dame's line did to NC State on both sides. I think Clemson, they have a very good defensive line that's going to put NC State in obvious passing situations, which is what Notre Dame did to them. And Clemson does have the more talented defense than even. And this is at NC State, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So that, I don't know, that could help them out a little bit. It's probably not so much that it's like a home field thing for NC State. It's probably just good that it's not in Death Valley.
Yeah.
Because that would be like an auto loss, I think. But I expect Clemson to probably not be in control, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're going to win pretty much with ease.
They're favored by over a touchdown, too.
Yeah. And that's at NC State. So I think that's probably pretty accurate.
I'm definitely going Clemson here.
Okay.
I mean, no surprise.
Yeah. All right, next game.
Couple that we probably won't talk about. I mean, Stanford is at Washington State.
I don't care about that game. Go
Yeah.
to the next one. They suck. Sorry if you
How
like
much-
the Pac-12, but I mean, you guys played yourself out of it. So
Yeah, we don't think the Pac-12 has much of a chance to get the playoff.
I mean,
maybe Washington.
their hope is Washington, but Washington, like we said at the committee, Washington's playing nobody out of conference. And
Oh yeah, it's worse
Washington-
than nobody. It is
would you?
trash.
I think
It's one of the worst there
I think
is.
Washington will get smoked by the likes of like Georgia and Ohio State, and like I don't think Washington can hang with those.
They got
teams.
shut down by Arizona State.
That's why we're not talking about your team. So
Yeah,
next
how
game.
much do we want to talk about LSU, Bama?
We can talk about it for about a minute. So this is what I think is what's going to happen. People are going to say, hey, it's Alabama, LSU. This game's usually pretty tight for the most part. The problem this year...
Bama is 21.5-point favorites, if that tells you.
When's the last time in the SEC that we've had a team that's been like 3 touchdown-plus favorites every week, pretty much? Like, I mean, it's insane. Like, Ole Miss, Tennessee, they're about 5 touchdown underdogs to Bama.
Yeah,
that's
a lot of points.
Is that more indicative of like how good we all think Bama is, or how bad the conference is?
I think it's more that the conference outside of Bama is just, down than what it was, a few years ago. I mean, just look at the East. Besides Georgia, the East is a mess.
The East 2 schools behind Georgia that were supposed to be contenders are firing their coaches mid-season.
Right.
I mean, it's embarrassing. The SEC is probably still the most talented conference as far as like what kind of kids they get as far as like depth and recruiting, but their coaches are awful. Like the Big Ten, Harbaugh and Urban forced the Big Ten to start spending more money on coaches. So all of a sudden the Big Ten's got all these good coaches. I mean, all these other conferences just have better coaches. The SEC has got turnover with all these programs that are supposed to be good. Ole Miss is
getting fired.
I mean, Tennessee is a total dumpster fire. Ole Miss is awful. They have all kinds of scandal in there. Florida is atrocious. I mean, this is a really bad conference right now. LSU, I think that they made an emotional hire with Ed Orgeron. Do you remember when West Virginia won the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma, and they made that special teams coach the head coach?
Yeah, that was stupid.
And then forced him out with Holgorsen, like, just basically taking over.
Yeah.
I think LSU, like, Ed Orgeron talking, and he's got that raging, like, emotional accent going, and they're like, you know what, we're going to hire this guy full-time. He can do it. I mean, I just don't think the guy's head coaching material, and I think they're going to get the floor wiped with them. But I think Bama's just going to wipe the floor with them, and that's honestly what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, I think Bama wins big, too.
Is this in Bama?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, they're going to murder them.
Yeah.
They're going to win by 31 points. So, I guess that we talked about it. There you go. So, next game.
Talking about it more than we needed to.
Yeah.
We got another, basically, division championship game with Virginia Tech Miami. So this one's pretty big.
We should talk about this one more because Corey from Denver is, if you guys have watched, he's a Virginia Tech alum. I think he thinks his team is good. I don't think he thinks they're an elite team by any means. But where we, I think, agree with Corey is we think Miami is severely overvalued. We thought, I don't know how you feel about it. I think Miami's the exact same as Michigan was at the beginning of this year. I thought Michigan being ranked in the top 10 was a total joke. That's not because I hate Michigan. I would, if I thought Michigan was, I mean, I hate Penn State, and I think they're a really good team, and I've said they were deserving of their ranking, but I think.
But Michigan, they do something well, like really well.
Yeah, and that's where I was. That's. I'm glad you said that because going into the year, like reading Phil Steele's magazine, like learning about Miami, their front seven was supposed to be really fierce. Like they were supposed to have a really dominant front seven. And like when I watched them play, they're just kind of leaky. They make lots of mistakes. They aren't consistent.
They mess around with bad teams.
Yeah, they play down to their competition, and
North Carolina's a bad team.
Yeah,
Syracuse isn't bad. Georgia Tech's not bad, but those are. Well, the Georgia Tech game especially, I thought they were going to lose.
Those are teams though that like the 6th ranked team or whatever Miami is should be like dominating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think Miami's ranking is just a byproduct of other teams losing and Miami not losing yet. And until Miami plays somebody worthy, which I think we could say Virginia Tech is going to be the first worthy opponent that they're really playing for the most part.
Miami's got Tech this week and then Notre Dame the following week, so things could change a lot for them in a hurry.
Yeah, I think things are going to change for them. And I think they're going to lose 2 weeks in a row, essentially.
We just haven't been impressed by this team most of the year. Even though they keep winning, there's something to be said about that if you can just win.
But they don't, like you said, they don't do anything elite. There's nothing that they do that's really.
And this is not a team that we would be worried about.
No,
especially
Rozier's very inconsistent. They've got some injuries on offense. The defense just is not as consistent as we thought it would be. I think Virginia Tech is going to turn them over quite a few times. I think that's going to be the difference in that game is there's going to be some turnovers that lead to Virginia Tech points. And I think that line opened at Miami favored by 3, I think, or 3.5. It is already flipped Virginia Tech being favored by a field goal. This first night tonight, which tells you that all the sharps the guys that are like betting professionally, I guess, they all are hammering Virginia Tech with the points because they know that they feel Virginia Tech is going to win this game outright.
Yeah, better team probably. Anyway.
Yeah, so I think Virginia Tech's going to win. Do you agree with me? Or
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. And then Alex, do you think Virginia Tech? Yeah. So we've got a clean sweep of Miami. I think they get revealed. I think that I'm not sure about Virginia Tech. Corey would probably. I don't know if he would hate me for saying this. I don't know if Virginia Tech's quite like talented enough to really wipe the floor with Miami. It could happen. I think when Miami plays Notre Dame, you could potentially see like some kind of just ass kicking.
I think Vatek will win like comfortably, not big.
No, but like, would you say probably like I think they win by 7 to 10 points.
Yeah,
like it's never really
that's
out.
exactly
like,
what I would say.
Okay, okay. So yeah, we think Miami will take care of itself with that problem then.
Yeah.
So what else do we got then? Do we have another game or?
We've covered like the biggest games. So we could talk about our game a little bit if we want. Ohio State, Iowa.
Well, it is our pod, so we can do what we want.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not going to talk about too much. Ohio State, if they show up ready to play, they should win comfortably. The spread's 17.
The thing that worries me a little bit is it's like after
A
the
very
big win like
emotional
that,
win.
it's kind of a trap game going
Yeah.
to Iowa. We've talked about how Iowa's done at home against top 5 teams already this year, seeing how close they came to beating Penn
And
State.
traditionally, the last 4 games they played the top 5 teams, they're 3-1, and they lost the one game by a play. Penn State scored in the last play of the game. So Iowa was a 1 play away from being 4-0 the last 4 they played at home against top 5 teams. I don't know if that's at home at night. It really doesn't matter. I don't think.
They were all at night.
Kinnick it's a good atmosphere. It's a tough place to play. And I think Ferentz is really overrated, but I think that Iowa traditionally just plays pretty well against good competition. So
the thing about Iowa is though, they win games scoring like 17 points, and they're going to need to score a lot more than that to beat us. I think their defense is good, but
I think it's not as good as we thought it would be at the end of the year. Like they're going to have to score like 30 plus.
Yeah,
I
agree. I agree with that. I just don't think Iowa's offense can keep up with us.
I think that's the biggest thing. This is the last thing I'm going to say about this game, and then I'll let Alex say what he wants to say about it. If the only way Iowa wins is if Ohio State beats itself.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa's not going to outplay us.
But that's Iowa.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, Penn State really, they outplayed them, but Iowa would hold Penn State to field goals when they get in the red zone.
Right.
They would capitalize whenever Penn State made mistakes.
Right.
And then it's like they hit like 1 or 2 big plays on offense the whole game, and then they're all of a sudden winning.
If you had to pick against the spread, who are you picking?
I don't know. I could see us definitely winning by around that margin because it's at 17-ish right now. I could see it being that kind of game.
Okay. Alex, do you have anything to add for that game? I mean, does anything that Iowa does scare you at all?
Not really. I mean, I think it's going to be, like you said, going into Iowa and playing there, it's always a tough game.
Yeah.
I think locker room, there's players off.
Yeah.
But change some things up. But I think it should be a game that Ohio State should be able to control on both ends and run away with.
Okay. Yeah.
I think we're going to continue, this
offensive surge.
Right. Yeah. The way we've been playing ever since Oklahoma. I think we'll continue to do that next week at Iowa.
It's the Cats. So it's just a matter of us just showing up ready to play. Yeah, just don't have a letdown. So, what was going to be? Is there any other games, or was that pretty much the last game?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Right now, I guess, do we want to talk about? I don't think we can really talk about bets next week yet.
But we can. We talked a little bit. Well, we mentioned Virginia Tech. We like them.
Yeah, well,
it's different now that they're actually favored.
Yeah, because we lose a lot of value, but I still like them at 3. I mean, I think that's a pretty good line.
I would still take them.
Yeah.
If they were getting points, then we for sure would have been all over that.
I already had it. Yeah.
But obviously, the people with more money than us we're all over it, so
Yeah.
now they're favored.
And the people that live in a place where they can place the bet before we can,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah, if we were to place bets, that is.
I just want to see what some of these lines are, so just so we can throw them out.
As far as last week, I think we can talk about a couple of the bets that we had that we hit, even though we did have not the greatest week. I will pull up our betting document to see what each of us four picked, and then
There were a lot of bets this week from all of us.
there were couple.
Bovada doesn't even have the lines.
Yeah, a couple of our like more lockish ones. Corey from Denver and I both had Virginia Tech and Duke under 49 or 48 points, I think, and that game was like 24-3. We paid attention to the weather reports. They got some rain. Duke's terrible on offense. Virginia Tech is not the most explosive team on offense, but their defense has been playing really well, so that game went well under. Addison had a couple good ones. Florida State BC under 48 was a joke. I can't believe that you were the only one that had that.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I asked you guys why.
I don't know. We just missed it, I guess.
Florida State is auto under.
Yeah, I'll give Steele credit on Notre Dame. Us three were pretty much. Corey didn't have the bet, but I think we were all pretty much on North Carolina State plus 7.5. Steele took his Irish at -7, and they covered very easily. So props to him for knowing his team better than us. He also had Penn State. I don't feel he was on the right side of that, but he did win the game, so that is the right side essentially with +6.
Won the bet.
But we had some other ones that were decent, some other ones that we lost. We lost more than we won this week. However, the podcast overall, I believe, is still over 60%. If I had to guess, I think we're
going into this week. I think we were over 60%. So yeah,
we were definitely over 61 in this week.
Been tearing it up.
Yeah. As far as next week, because it's Sunday night, obviously Bovada doesn't have the lines out, so it's gonna be hard.
Yeah,
to
we can look on Vegas Insider.
Yeah, if you bring that up, we can probably give like a quick, just like who we're leaning. We can ask Alex if
some of those bigger games.
See which games like we're leaning. We're not going to give actual bets, and then just like the last podcast, if you guys watched, I'll add the bets later in the week. Some of the ones that we feel confident about. The last time I did that, we were like 1-4 on the ones that I posted, but we had a winning week. So it's kind of interesting how we always the ones that I post, we just end up losing somehow. But we have it documented that we're crushing. So
Clemson is a 7-point favorite at NC State.
After what I saw, as far as like we said with the lines of scrimmage, I would take Clemson to cover in that game.
Mm-hmm.
I just think they're going to dominate and suffocate NC State, and it's going to be a low-scoring affair, just like last week. Steele and I had Clemson and Georgia Tech under 50. I think that game went well under. Clemson's just going to suffocate teams. They're not as explosive without Deshaun Watson, who, if you guys watched the NFL game today, Deshaun Watson is a special player, and he's going to be really good in the NFL for a really long time.
Definitely. I don't know why any quarterbacks were taken before Watson.
Yeah, we said all offseason that this guy consistently was doing it on the biggest stages against the best teams.
Yeah, every time he played Bama, he put up amazing numbers.
Right, yeah. So, and Saban's one of the best masterminds at like kind of trying to, bottle up quarterbacks. And
he's playing a bunch of NFL guys on that defense.
Yeah, so it's he's great. But yeah, Clemson is not quite as explosive as they were last year, not by any means. I think they will suffocate and cover that spread though. Anything else interesting?
Well, we went over Virginia Tech.
Yeah, we like Virginia Tech. Alex said he liked Virginia Tech to cover as well.
So we mentioned Oklahoma State's -3. Basically a coin flip.
I mean, if I'm betting the game, like if I'm actually betting, I think I have to take Oklahoma on the points just because I feel like if they can win the game outright, I might as well take the team and the points, in my opinion. Like, I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. If I think Oklahoma State's the win, I guess I should probably just take Oklahoma State chalk. But
I guess I think I would lean Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
-3. So the Bama game opened at 22. It's gone down to 21.5.
Okay. I mean, I would, if I have to bet, I think I would want Alabama smashes. So.
Yeah.
I mean, LSU has not proven this year at all to be able to move the football. Alabama could win the game 24-0.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I think they'll win by. I think they'll score more than that. So.
Yeah. Right now, I would lean LSU probably. I don't think this game's gonna be close, but it's still a lot of points.
It's a lot, and LSU does have better athletes than the likes on defense and the likes of
Last
and
year-
Tennessee.
last year LSU got shut out, but it was only 10-0. So I
That's
think
true.
they covered. I don't know what the spread was.
Last year I would think they probably did.
Yeah.
It's probably like it's probably close to 14. I'd say.
This is an interesting one. USC -8 against Arizona.
Where's it at?
USC.
USC looked a lot better last night, but that's the thing is maybe USC is just good against some of like the softer lines of the Pac-12. Like against Notre Dame, they got annihilated, and they would get the last time every time they play somebody with really good line recently, like they played Bama week 1 the year before. I know it was Bama, and Bama could do that to a lot of teams, but
Arizona's been running all over people lately.
yeah, the quarterback's been interesting. I haven't been able to watch a lot of. I've seen actually a decent amount of Pac-12 this year. I haven't really seen much of Arizona, but I keep hearing about this quarterback, this dual threat guy that can run. Rich Rod always seems to have a pretty decent offense. I mean, what's your feeling on you? I don't think I can honestly say what I would bet because I don't know enough about Arizona to give.
I'd probably take the points again.
Take Arizona.
Yeah, because it's 8.
Alex, do you know anything about Arizona? Okay, so he's
Yeah,
with
about
me.
West Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arizona's weird because they're obviously not on anyone's radar,
Right.
and now all of a sudden they got a big game with USC.
I think the problem with betting USC games is like you don't know what you're going to get. They could win that game by 30 points.
Yeah,
and
I've
they
just
could
been
lose.
I've just been fading USC
Yeah.
this year anyway.
Yeah,
so.
and I mean that's been working, I think.
Yeah.
So, is there any other interesting ones, or is that about it? If you guys are
Yeah,
able to
that's
bet
about it, I
Arkansas
guess.
State at any point in any week, you probably should just bet them because we keep betting them and we keep winning. And so it's a weird team we keep betting, but they keep covering spread. So, do we have anything else before we wrap it up? I think we covered games for next week, and
Yep.
obviously the pod hasn't been getting off every week, but we've been getting it off kind of, I don't know, every other week or something. And I think we'll probably. Not next weekend, probably 2 weeks from now, we'll have another one to kind of talk about the playoff scenarios at that point. Maybe there'll have been an upset or two that have happened. We get a little more clarity on the
Yeah.
situation. So, but yeah, Alex, anything to wrap it up or no? Addison still concussed.
Yeah. I need to.
It's gonna be a rough work week.
It might be.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll be a worse Monday than usual.
Yeah, probably. All right.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So, I guess, until next time. Before my cats destroy this house.
Yeah.